Gonna invite both you guys because
Hey guys.
this is a fun topic and you guys definitely have a lot of thoughts on it.
Hey guys, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Is it pronounced G?
So if you're from the eastern side of the world, it's je. But if you're from the western side of the world, J's fine. I'm quite happy with it either way.
No, J is like how I would see it pronounced as well. Well, 会说点汉语，但是 yeah.
Oh wow, that's impressive, man.
Yeah, well, I lived in China for a bit, so
Oh nice, nice. Which part, if you don't mind me asking?
I was in Beijing for a bit and Shanghai for a bit.
Nice, nice, beautiful places.
Yeah, how about yourself?
I spent about a year and a half in Hong Kong.
Oh, right on. That's the real deal.
Yeah, I love that. I love Hong Kong. I wish I could go back, but I'm stuck in the UK still.
How about you, Tony? Where in China did you live?
Nowhere. I'm not as much as a worldly man as you two. Hopefully we'll go to China soon, though. Just in the Bay Area right now. Chilling and building.
Dude, if compressed NFTs are gonna get to billions, you're gonna have to be.
I know, dude. I keep on telling Kevin, I say, look, dude, just give me a little bit of budget. Let me get on a plane and go to Korea, go to China. Like, I bet you I can get us to 1 million. But he thinks there's better markets to go after. I'm sure time will tell.
Yeah, well, I know you guys are on the right path to get there. Um, okay, so want to kick it off. Um, this workshop, this discussion happens every Friday. It's an initiative that the Solana Foundation is supporting for us to be able to do this on a weekly basis. We're doing this through Dean's List. And the idea really is to continuously explore what Realms does, what Realms needs, and from a very high level, what are DAOs? What can we do well in DAOs? Last time we were discussing the Aragorn drama, which was a fun discussion. But now the idea is to discuss NFT DAOs. And the reason why we chose this as the discussion was there was recently a poll to discuss new features that Realms needs. And one of the ones that was brought up the most, it was actually a bit of a surprise to me, was the need to control update authority um, to an NFT collection that's controlled by that NFT collection itself. Um, I'm going to kind of kick it off with that as a thought. Personally, I think that would be great for the space in that it kind of sets the tone of how to make these projects unruggable. If all of the funds from the mint are going into a treasury that is controlled by that exact same mint, and then the mint authority is controlled by those NFTs, if it sounds like a kind of safer ecosystem. Um, I'll open it up to you guys. What do you think about that as a next priority for Realms, and does it, what does it do? Does it actually move us forward, or is it something that is just one of those nice to haves that's not really needed?
I'll have to go for that one. I think there's that could take two very interesting directions. I think the first, which definitely comes to mind, is protecting some of the projects that have gone either through a rug or potentially avoiding that. I think there is a another avenue that could potentially turn into to almost a vector of attack, which is, there's almost a potential for someone to mint a majority of a particular collection just to attempt to say vote on what to do with the treasury funds. It's just an initial thought that comes to mind. But I do think for the majority, you've got 99% of collections. I think it would actually be a step in the right direction.
Crayon, yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so man, I love the idea of DAOs and stuff. I do agree with what Zay just said. I'm gonna say Zay. I hope I pronounced that right. You guys know the DJ and Trash Pandas. We don't control the update authority, but I kind of like that it's in the hands of these guys because they pretty much built NFTs on Solana. I feel like I've seen our DAO let us down many times. Um, I've seen bad actors in the form of whales come in with like half-baked ideas and try to get things off the ground that like just don't work or they just come off tone deaf. Um, and DAOs are typically pretty inefficient speed-wise when it comes to decision making. So it's one of those things where like if we went down this road, I would want so much nuanced control over not only the funds but also like maybe the amount of time that someone's owned the NFT, and them having some sort of time weighted, I guess, governance like that's larger than just the NFT, right? So if like myself, if I have been holding this NFT and had it PFP'd for the longest time, I think even if I only have 20 DTP, somebody with 300 DTP shouldn't have more of a say just because they bought those NFTs yesterday, you know? So I think the amount of time that someone's held the NFTs and participated in the community should probably reflect in some way in the governance.
Yeah, I have to totally agree that time is the best. Again, this is my opinion. The best metric for reputation. You can't fake time. Whereas everything else, like if you've got a lot of money, you can, as you said, it's like, oh, okay, this guy goes in, buys all the degenerate pandas, and now all of a sudden we have to listen to him. Like, where'd you come from? We've never saw you. Like that's a DAO attack, right? So
And at this floor price, it's so easy to do against the Degenerate Trash Pandas, right? Like somebody could come in with $50,000 dollars, US dollars, sweep up our floor and like, start putting in crazy proposals for rain. Um, so it is something that like I think of all the spaces that are going on right now, there's a lot of cool, interesting ones. Like this is probably one where I feel like I feel most like I can contribute anything from my experience in the DAO. Just because, yeah, we've seen a lot go down, and we've seen a lot of attempts at pretty, I would say, weird things that maybe didn't seem well thought out, and yeah, man, it's a scary topic, but I love the idea of a DAO. I think that nuance control is going to be probably even more important than it even existing as a solution.
that's really good feedback. And when we're thinking about this feature again, and welcome, Madam. Great to see you back from vacation. Wanted to give you a bit of context on what we started talking about, and then I'd love to um, hear your voice again. Um, so there's a discussion about a new feature requirement for Realms, the Solana DAO platform, and the idea is, um, would it be useful to have a NFT DAO have the ability to control its own mint authority? Now, in deciding these priorities, it's important to know, okay, what do existing NFT DAOs want? Like, would they want this, right? You don't want to just build something because one or two people said, "Hey, that's a good idea." So really, Crayon's feedback is super valuable, right? It's like, hey, I am actually scared of that kind of power being put into a DAO. I'm concerned for the safety of the collection. So I think that's really good feedback. Man, would love to hear
I
your.
will say this, Dean. I love the idea of it. Like I want it to be safe, but I feel like it should exist. I want to say that. So like this is something worth fighting for. This authority control.
Yeah, I wanted to add, and this is something we talked about before that I've been just pondering for a long while now, just about like plutocratic control in Web3 or in crypto, how a token, whether it be fungible or non-fungible, either case makes sense. Um, if you do it by who owns the tokens, inherently the kind of 51% attack is how much it costs to control those tokens. For blockchains, it's the same thing, right? Like, one of the reasons a 51% attack is harder is because of on blockchains because of different kind of mechanisms. And I think that when we talk about like projects, we need to think about, okay, well, what are the mechanisms or feedback loops in terms of a kind of democratic process that will help us avoid capital capture, because like that's just not fun, right? It's like someone can just come in and take over a project because they have $50,000 or whatever. Is that really the point of this? um, I think that we kind of get lost in the sauce with money, right? Where the point of everything becomes, well, I want to make more money. That's not a necessarily bad goal, but I think that it is important to be more critical of, well, if that's the goal, then maybe DeFi is a better project for you, right? Or, maybe a project more focused on money than maybe a project focused on like building a community.
You also touched on the plutocratic nature, and earlier Crayon had mentioned a metric of time. How long someone's been part of a DAO, of a community, to use that. Um, so that brings up the idea of reputation in these DAOs. Um, and when I think about reputation, I inevitably think about underdog as well. Um, Tony, what do you think about um, i- being able to put like the amount of time somebody's been holding an NFT as an underdog NFT that is non-transferable? I'm sure you've thought about this problem more than most.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that the current state of crypto has been mostly plutocratic, but I think that there's been DAOs and teams that have moved a lot of things forward, like Monkey DAO, for example, or like the Links DAO, for example, with their membership NFT. And I think a lot of what they're trying to do, our friends with benefits, for example, as well, what they're trying to do is create a mutualistic, or not a mutualistic, but a meritocratic um, system within their economies. And I think that's probably the right way to go about it in Web3. And so for Underdog, our mission has always been to create data rich blockchains, but we started out by thinking about social capital and how do you bring social capital on chain. Um, and that's essentially what reputation is. And the more reputation that you bring on chain, the better chance you have of creating a meritocratic system where people can be chosen based on their contributions or the time that they may have been within a community or a society. Um, and then I think there's a place there where you actually create an economy that is mutualistic, meaning that people are working together based on their. And that sounds a little wrong, but I don't want it to be taken out of context people are working together for a goal based on their merit. And I think that when taken at a bigger structural level, people start to think of like obvious structures of government that haven't proven successful. But these are things like tribes and things. And I think Super Team does this well, where they divide each country into 150 people, right? Which is Dunbar's number. And they keep that DAO, that community, really small in order to keep things fluid and to keep merit, mutualism, economies, everything in check without it getting out of order at scale. Meaning that, hey, we know that I am part of the writing guild, I'm part of the design guild, I'm part of the research guild. I'm going to work with everyone within my guild and the other guild so we can optimize ourselves to make the most money. So TLDR, I think bringing reputation on chain creates a meritocratic system of operation within these DAOs. And I think once they figure out that balance, which is, hey, I've brought reputation on chain, here's who my top contributors are, it turns into this mutualistic economy where, hey, how do I divide whatever may be important to my type of DAO, whether that's future of work like Dean's List or Super Team, and how do I get people to work together so we can all make money? And obviously, shameless shill here, but I think the best way to capture all of that information is within dynamic NFTs. And I think not only dynamic NFTs, but also compressed NFTs because they make the ability to capture data um, so cheap. I think, or yeah, it makes the ability to capture data so cheap and so vast. So that's sort of how I thought about reputation and democracy versus meritocracy, or and then how to create economies on top of that. So hopefully that's helpful.
That's super helpful, Tony. And also, like for anybody that's not super Solana native here, there's a huge price difference between NFTs on literally any other chain. Um, so that's why this structure is even contemplatable. Right before, I wanted to give you a follow up question, Tony. Um, Eventually someone's going to start storing in these NFTs, these compressed NFTs. They're going to store the maybe a quick shortcut for how long you've been a holder or some sort of other reputation metric. Do you envision that that would be something that will be spearheaded first by an underdog, or do you think it would be in collaboration with a DAO, or would it be a third protocol building on top of underdog?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can see maybe in collaboration with a DAO and or a protocol. So I can imagine a world where, let's see, I'm just gonna make something up. So do not hold this, though this person is in pipeline. So Jupiter. I'm a Jupiter and I have my dynamic NFT that captures all of my reputation as a trader. And I've got X amount of reputation. I can take that reputation, turn it into an SPL token, REP, REPU, REPU. Let's just say that's the name of the token. I can swap it in and trade it for perks and rewards, or maybe just even for some liquidity. And let me know if I'm not hitting your question on the head, but I think that's probably not what we want to be doing. What we want to be doing is capturing that data from the protocol and or from the DAO, and working in collaboration with whoever that third party is, that protocol or that DApp or that DAO, on what perks and rewards or what customer journey they want to build out. So that's sort of how we think about it. And in terms of what we think about building out, there's this great article in Crayon. I see your hand up, so I would love to hear from you as well. But there's this article by Packy McCormick. It's called Small Applications, Big Protocols, I think it is, if you guys just go and look it up. And the essence is, or at least what I took away, I might be a dumbass, so just hold what I say with a little bit of salt, is these big protocols scale out and grow when small applications that provide value are built on top of them. And so for us, what we want to do is build applications that provide value across different verticals in the market. So we're going to start with like a very skeuomorphic market, very skeuomorphic experience that is loyalty and rewards. with our Square integration, we've been chatting with Boba guys on how we can have this dynamic NFT in store. We're going to start building data infrastructure. So I think you guys have been seeing the stuff like Starter, our compressed NFTs, our on-chain stamps. A lot of that is meant to start capturing these user insights and create data dashboards, data infrastructure for Web3 applications and DAOs to engage and retain their users. And then I think the third one that we're going to do is just Web3 in general. So we're seeing a lot of individuals who want to use NFTs for things like dusting, like Metaplex did last week. So that's sort of how we think about um, building out our ecosystem, but also scaling out in collaboration with others.
Yeah, I like what you guys are talking about. I just wanted to insert something. So, when we're talking about reputation, I wanted to know like um how much weight do you guys give representation, right? So like the PFP actually being worn and the duration of that time, uh, because like I think at the end of the day, if these governance tokens are super cheap, power can be easily bought. But I think that wearing NFT, representing the brand, being a public figure, speaking and being seen with that asset, I think helps to drive the price up and helps to protect the governance. Um, so if any way we could build a solution that could tell like how long someone's had a public facing profile picture connected to a governance token, that would also be very helpful, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think A16Z or yeah, I think it's A16Z has a two token system that they chatted about a long time ago. Um, and essentially, what they said is there's a liquidity token, a token that provides liquidity, and there's a reputation token. And I think in this instance, the PFP is the liquidity token, and I think that governance token is something that is soul bound. And that's why I think for us, we're really adamant on if there's anything that you want to do as a DAO, or there's anything that you want to do with social capital and reputation, capturing your user insights, you should probably make that soul bound. And it's for that exact reason, right? Which is you're able to then capture information and know that this individual um, is going to have that forever. It's sticking with them, right? They can't burn it, they can't get rid of it. And I think what the perfect world looks like is a PFP that is tied to this token, and whatever happens related to this PFP, related, like for example, you have the PFP in Backpack, right? Like you can imagine a world where now whenever you connect with that wallet tied to the PFP, that governance token is then updated, right? I can totally see that world. I don't know what it looks like or where it is yet, but I believe that there definitely has to be a two token system as well. And there's teams I think on Ethereum who may have done this. I'm not totally sure on Solana.
Something I've been thinking a lot about over my break, and reflecting the past 2 days I've been back in the industry, is how so many NFT projects, and I observed this during the height of the bull market, and also kind of sliding to the bear, the residuals of it, is people not really understanding, I think, what DAOs are good for, and not understanding that NFTs are a modality for connecting people, right? So I say this quote like Web3 as a tool, not the point. People thought that if I make an NFT project, then that will be successful. What I think people didn't realize is that NFT projects were the precursor to the tool, right? The precursor to a way of collecting people together in an on chain format. So now that we're in, this kind of bear market, but also I don't know that things are bumping a bit, right? We're getting some upward turbulence, which is interesting to see. Um, But I think ultimately the question now is, what are our ideas? Right? Why do we want to get together? Why do we want to connect with each other? What's the point? And I haven't yet seen a compelling what's the point. Now, there could be technological maxes, right? You can just like the technology, you can just like art, right? But I think that there needs to be a breakout case that is more about a movement, right? DAOs as a vehicle for movement building rather than DAOs as a vehicle for, um, exploring Web3 technology. So that's kind of where I've been, kind of noodling about these last few days and really trying to think, well, what could that be? Um, what is that kind of like movement that NFTs and, excuse me, that Web3 tools and by proxy, the DAO kind of framework could help facilitate? Um, I don't have the answer, but just a question.
Yeah, I think Nouns has done it pretty well on ETH. Like they're very vision and goal driven. And yes, I know a Solana person talking about ETH project. Holy fucking shit. Um, I am just a degenerate trader. So yeah, the Nouns I think do it pretty well, right? Like they have a lot of initiatives where they did that Rose Bowl parade. They did a commercial. I know they do collaborations with creators and stuff, and they've been getting their name out to the mainstream. But it doesn't seem like they're really doing a lot of technology stuff. And I agree with you where who's going to be the first breakout to create like a really really cool, and I know skeuomorphic isn't the right word, it's just a mental model that I think I can take, who's going to replicate a real world use case that just makes it so clear to people that wait a minute, this is so much better, like the incentive alignment is better, I can connect with people in a better way, I can take my followers from place A to place B without a hassle. What's going to highlight the value prop for Web3?
Um, does anybody know if the Pudgy Penguins holders make anything off of the toy? Like that's like, something that just happened where they made this toy, and I know that that toy connects to some soulbound NFT, but like, that could be considered an operation for the like. I automatically think that NFT DAOs, they're brands. Like that's, you know, what they've got. Um, it could be used. You can use an NFT to
Mm-hmm.
raise capital, just like Link style, right? Like that. That's an example of, hey, the NFT is used to raise capital and then show membership. But for like the other, like the PFP ones, those are brand plays. Um, so yeah,
Oh,
would love to
actually,
hear thoughts
okay,
there.
okay. Bears is actually an IP play and a tech place. They're doing Web3 loyalty and rewards tools for enterprises, and I forget who their partner is. It's this big brand. Yeah, I forgot what their name was, but I think that's how they're going about getting clients. So once again, I think the lowest hanging fruit here for not only DAOs but I think Web3 experiences to shine light is loyalty and rewards.
Hey, somebody's speaking. I feel like I can't hear.
No, I think we all just stopped talking at the same time. I was gonna say that I wonder. Sorry, I've just been like I'm just really processing a lot. I'm just wondering like how do we participate in creating the environment for that breakout, right? So like as I'm head of community over at Wonder, and I'm I've been in the Web3 space for a while, and I'm just kind of like how do we create that environment for people to build that DAO that will, or build that kind of project that will show people what the thing is. Do we have to do it? Is it just somebody we need to inspire? What do you guys think that that flow looks like?
I think that's a great question. As someone who likes, using tools and also consulting on, what needs to be built, I think it needs to be hand in hand. Like it's good. I kind of, I don't I don't openly discuss this opinion, but I think that, DAO builders who do not DAO are wasting everyone's time. Like, whenever somebody tells me they're working on a new DAO tool, my first question is like, hey, which DAO are you part of? It's like, oh, I'm not part of any DAO, but I have this awesome tool. And it's like, okay, yeah, you just, you know, you keep on thinking up recipes when you don't cook. I'm looking forward to tasting that food. Um, so yeah, I know it's a little super sarcastic there, but
Yeah, I think
that's
that's
how I feel about it.
I think that's really valid, because ultimately, like, and this is how I've been feeling as I've been, less in the like speculative space and more in like, helping build a company and whatever, is I'm just like, I've realized that there is that the DAO tooling space built too fast for where people were. I know, hot take coming from someone who's part of a DAO tool, but anyway, and I think that that is partly because of VC money, right? Um, kind of pushing growth, and that's just kind of the name of the recipe or the name of the incentive structure. But I think ultimately we need people to start with, and this is kind of like, a direction that Wonder potentially be going in, some alpha, but we're thinking about how do we start where people are, which is using mostly Web 2 tools and having a Web 3 functionality on top of it that push to on chain moments. So, what I mean by that is, most people are still in Discord. Most people are still on Twitter. Most people are still on Notion. Most people are not actually operating within a holistic Web3 space. If you look at the DAUs for any of these projects, what are they? Like, maybe like a few hundred, maybe for big ones a few thousand. What does that tell me? That tells me that people aren't using these things. Now, is that a critique of the thing inherently? No, what I take from that data is I take that, okay, well, if people aren't using it, then we need to hook people in a higher place in the funnel, right? So that higher place is tapping into people on Discord, on Twitter, right? Engaging with people in the places they are, and then helping them connect their understandings to what Web3 infrastructure really is, right? So I call that creating on-chain moments. So that means like minting an NFT or getting a token sent to you, or I guess those are options right now. So like, yeah, those two things are like, getting a reputation token, and then that is indexed on chain. So I think that those are the kind of building blocks we have right now, and getting people to do that with their already social interactions on the internet is the most important thing we can do right now, because then we'll start having historic data, and we know data about consumers is immensely valuable, right? So if we can get consumers to push their data on chain, even if they use it or not use it, that will start to increase the value of the networks they're pushing their on-chain moments to. So that's kind of been my new hypothesis for the past bit, but really coming back has been like, okay, how do we show people to push moments on chain, or how do we get people to do that, and then eventually show them that all of their aggregated data is valuable and they should continue to invest in the on chain network.
Man, you're gonna love what we have at Underdog then. I think that's the entire thesis and hypothesis behind enabling data-rich blockchains is we want to make bringing data on chain and connecting data that lives on chain really easy. So our NFT API mints, updates, and indexes NFTs. For example, like we're working with teams like Parcel, Solana Mobile, where they're creating these NFTs, and Super Team as well, where they're bringing data from Airtable. They have a reputation system that works out of Airtable. They're bringing all of that data that lives there on chain through an NFT, and now they're able to work with teams like Solarplex, which is product hub for Web3, and use that reputation compose or interoperably. So I totally agree, and I think um, the big, big piece there that's the unlock, at least in Solana, is compression. So being able to bring data on chain, and I think people forget that, um, you know, I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but like on-chain data right now isn't very valuable. Like actually, candidly, it's actually not valuable at all. So what we need to do is bring more data on chain from places that matter, like Web2. So for example, with Boba Guys, Boba Guys right now is going to be really important in bringing customer data on chain. Hey, what type of lifetime value can we capture within an NFT? What spends and referrals can we capture on chain? Once we bring that on chain, now it's this really cool place where it's, hey, Senior Sisig, hey, other big restaurant chain, here's data for you to go to market and target digitally native consumers. And I think that's the point that you're trying to make as well, which is, hey, like once you bring this data on chain or you have more data on chain, makes it really easy for other projects, whether that's in Web 2 or in Web 3, to go to market. And once you start recreating this whole data ecosystem and having a lot of this, you create these real interoperable, composable experiences, and that's when that real Web3 value prop comes through. Because now I'm a creator and I can take my following from, I don't know, Solarplex to um, uh, Instaplex and to Twitterplex, right? And I can now really make my money across all of those followers. So those are some of my thoughts, and obviously a selfless show of Underdog.
Oh, I love that you're thinking about it because like I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I think ultimately, like you're saying, the value of the data, that's really important. But I also think that what blockchain technologies have enabled is it's kind of like showing us that centralized databases are kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good metaphor for other technologies, but like they're kind of like early versions of, I don't know, like a kind of city states, right? Where it's like, they had to like, protect their walls and like all these different things, and like it was very kind of like rudimentary. But ultimately, our data are public goods in the sense that like no one really should own the data that we're producing, right? It's like we're producing the data. So it's weird that Facebook is this kind of like city state of our data, where it's like, bro, we made it. You're just capitalizing on the
Yeah.
infrastructure, right? And I think that blockchain technology allows us, and of course, it's still in a kind of worse way than a centralized database, of course, as it would be naturally. Um, it enables us to start to explore what decentralized, censor resistant, collaboration in data looks like, rather than this kind of like warring, let me get your data in my silo versus the other person's silo.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a private garden versus a public or a shared garden, right? Where one entity owns the entire garden and can invite others in whenever they'd want, but can kick them out whenever they'd like, or the shared garden where everyone can come in and pick and choose, and or maybe even a public garden where everyone just steps in and owns their own data. Um, yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunity for these type of things to flourish, and regardless of what chain it is, I think that's probably the biggest value prop for Web3.
I will
Well,
say this.
oh,
Oh, go
please.
ahead, Dean.
No, please go. I was going to bring up a new topic.
Oh, I was gonna say this. Like, I think that all of this always comes back to onboarding and like kind of getting some of these really complex concepts and like distilling them to something that like your aunt or your uncle or your grandfather can understand, or even kids in school, right? I think education is a seriously untapped place for blockchain right now that we haven't even gotten into. But I want to see more proposals that have less to do with the transfer of money and more to do with the transfer of ideas and um, things like voting on art. If we're going to launch a new collection and we're trying to figure out like what style that's going to be, right off the bat we could all mint like a token that's just pretty much bare, use that as a governance token, and then start going through art styles. We could talk, do we want an anime style, do we want 3D art, do we want um punk art, do we want like that kind of stuff. And then from there we can kind of like continue to make decisions, but no money is being transferred this whole time. And it seems like to me, a lot of people think that the DAO is just supposed to divvy out money, and I think money out just never feels bullish. From a DAO perspective, it just feels like we're just increasing the circulating supply of whatever token that is. More fun votes.
Yeah, I hear you, and it's always about like what can actually be controlled through an on-chain execution. Transferring funds is the easiest one that a non-dev can participate in. It's going to be super hard when we're expecting non-devs to be able to read uh, a proposal and understand what the transaction is going to change. I mean, we're lucky that we're still not there yet. Um, there's so many times where we just sign things with blind faith, like okay, it's Dean who put up the proposal, so guess we're safe. Um, want to switch gears and get everybody's opinion on NFT trait DAOs. This is one of those things that constantly pops up. Like, oh, the laser eyes, or they've got the cigars, or the business suit, or the sombrero. There's, now with Mad Lads, I think there's been like 10 different trait DAOs that popped up. Um, gonna share my opinion real quick, and then want to hear everybody else's. Um, I think it's just another one of those like, what are we doing? Why do we need this? But it's just even worse with a trait DAO because it's like it was completely random that you got that trait, unless you specifically went and hunted out. Like you don't start communities from like, okay, who has a license plate that ends with a 6. Hey, let's go and cure cancer together. Like, so yeah, that's my super sarcastic take on trait DAOs.
Okay, I gotta go here because I feel targeted. So I'm the founder of Crayon DAO. This is, if you don't know, it's supposed to be an art community on Solana. Um, the first NFT that I ever bought was a DGen Trash Panda that had a rain jacket on it, and like it didn't have any crayon traits or anything like that. But then I was like looking for like what is the trait, what is the artwork that I want to move into to get into my forever DGen Trash Panda, and it happened to be the Crayon Farmer, which is this kind of like plaid shirt with crayons in the pocket, right? And I've gone on to form my entire identity around this, but my name is Hans, and everyone calls me Hans because it's spelled Hans. And so my whole life I've been trying to tell people how to pronounce it Hans instead of hands and crayons. and crayons kind of sounded so close that I was like, this is my brand. This is what works. Even if you see the Han Solo G in my tag, it stemmed from me telling people it's Hans, like Han Solo, because people just always called me Hans, and so that was my little personal battle. But in on this journey though, I've found that there's a lot of people who identify with the crayons, right? It's that art trait in the monolith collections that everybody kind of identifies. If you look at the apes, it's one of the most rare mouth traits. Those things go for thousands of soul, even right now. Um, it's just one of those things like people will identify with an image so strong that they'll make their entire identity around it. And that's something that's unavoidable. To tell you guys that Crayon DAO is an actual DAO would be a lie. It's definitely not. That's why there's two O's at the end of DAO. Okay. Um, I forgot what I came up with instead of it's a decentralized autonomous organization, but it's probably more of a degenerate uh, autonomous organization or something like that. But listen, sub DAOs are something I've seen people really go to a lot of trouble to kind of try and create. The problem is, and this is something I found out along my journey, is that you adopt an entire new set of problems and struggles, right? There's obviously attack vectors. Um, like I've had my own little run-ins with whales who just want to make stupid decisions, right? That could affect the larger collection. But I will say this, since I've been doing things for Crayon DAO, building this little small community of artists and art collectors, the crayon farmer trait that I fell in love with has kind of been 3 to 4x the floor the entirety of, and sometimes 7x the floor of what a DJ Trash Panda is, right? Um, and it's something that like if we had like a way to only have governance over just one trait and then create like a little sub DAO, and I knew for a fact that the update authority on the original collection was safe and secure, I could really build a business around it. But I can't lie to you guys and tell you guys that I'm not uh, thinking about the fact that if one day these guys just decide to sunset DJ and Trash Panda and rug the project, that all of my work would be for nothing, right? Um, and that sucks. And so I wouldn't tell anybody that this is like a foolproof, like, yeah, go do this thing. It just to me is the first thing that when you get into this space, you try to find your PFP, your artwork, you build your brand, you start to recruit people who are like-minded and who are into the same things as you. And I feel like we've done a great job within the Crayon DAO of kind of sticking to what we do best, which is just art and crayons and that kind of stuff. But I can't say that like every single like a sunglasses DAO is gonna do great. You know what I'm saying? Because like what is okay? So yeah, there's sunglasses in all these different collections, and say we live in a perfect interoperable world where every collection that has sunglasses traits can join this DAO. I can't say that it's gonna be successful, but I will say that there's gonna be people who try. And so like I think that maybe it's best that we do make the tooling, the DAO tooling, to do stuff with these SFT traits and not just ignore it. Because even when Mad Lads came out, this expression, this Van Gogh expression, which I pulled this pipe from my Mad Lad and put it on my DJ and Trash Panda. Um, this is a trait that I want to token gate for the Crayon DAO. And if somebody came out with a collection tomorrow with a paintbrush in their mouth, I'd want to add that to the Crayon DAO. And I can't help but thinking that that kind of um, virality could really work really well with a lot of other traits and inside of collections.
I want to add 2 points. One that is pro and one that's against. So I think that my against argument, I'll start there and then I'll go to pro. I think my against kind of critique of the kind of like, trait kind of groups or trait DAOs is that what it feels like to me is it feels like people trying to like create value for the project so then they can exit. Maybe pessimistically. Um, so it feels very like MLM, which I am very not for. I don't really value systems that don't produce anything meaningful in the sense of like, deep value in terms of, a product or, sense of belonging. So it could potentially do sense of belonging, but I often feel like it's people trying to say, buy this thing so then you can be a part of this thing. So then my thing is more valuable than everyone else's thing. So that's like the negative. The positive is that you see our species do this with most things, right? We tend to be very like organized around random things. So I love Magic the Gathering, the card game, and in Magic the Gathering, people are like, "Oh, I love red, I love green, right? I love green blue, right?" It's like those are the land types. Um, why? I don't know. People just do that, right? I personally love plains, water, and forest, right? That's always been my vibe. So and multicolored as well. So it's like, why is that the case? I don't know. It's just what I like. And when people are talking about the decks they're building, and I find another planes person, I'm like, oh, that's super cool, and there's some kind of affinity there, right? So I think if we take it back to just like things that we did off chain, right? We did that, right? Oh, Pokemon, right? Oh, I love the electric Pokemon, right? People were obsessed with the water Pokemon, right? Why? I don't know. That's just what we do. So I think that the thing that we're missing though is that in these kind of ecosystems, these games, there's not interoperability, right? There wasn't when we were a kid, right? You play Magic or you play Pokemon. You played Yu-Gi-Oh. You can't play Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Magic and make it one game, right? You didn't say, oh, well, the blue and the Pokemon, we can make a game with that. Now, is that saying we shouldn't do that? No, I think the technology allows us to imagine what that might look like. But I think organizationally, that is much bigger of a lift for people to start thinking about it in that way. Because our history is not in that interoperable fashion, right? It is these different games you play and then you don't cross them over. And I remember actually there were kids who played those games where if you tried to do that, where you're like, well, I'm gonna mix like all the blue from Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic, and we're gonna play a game with all the blue ones, people would make fun of you. I mean, the nerds would make fun of you, but it's like people would be like, you can't do that. That's not how you play the game. So I think in a weird way, we're suffering from that mentality. But I think that naturally we do that. We naturally create these groups. And I think that that can actually make us have affinity towards something, right? Like, why do you like paintbrushes? Maybe you're an artist and you just like paintbrushes on animals, right? It's cute. Okay, right? And then other people find it cute, and then you build a community around how cute it is. And I think then is the work of deepening those bonds to create some real value. But I think that people stop at the MLM and don't go to the let's actually build connections here and potentially like maybe you work in this industry and I work in this industry and we can talk about it, right? Like actually furthering those bonds in the digital space.
Yeah, and so one thing I will say is like I've given out crayon farmers to artists so they can join the crayon DAO. And the real technological advancement here is the interoperability, right? And so and one thing I would say about mixing Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic, those are all different games with different rules. Whereas I feel like here in this space, we're all kind of playing the same game. You know, you could play it a many different ways, but the game is, you know, find your group, find your people, build your brand, like make your voice as loud as it possibly can, make money. That doesn't necessarily mean exit your projects, that you hold. It just kind of means make money. And if you do find that trait that you're building a sub DAO around, um, if there is some sort of business model that you can insert into that, like say, because our ultimate intent is to create a gig marketplace, right? But and part of those funds will probably be redistributed somehow, but we're gonna work on that stuff later. The truth is, like, we're kind of in a stalemate because I have been very disappointed in Realms DAO. I don't know if it was the way that DGen Trash Panda was set up within it, uh, or if like we were on an old update or something. But I've put in grants through Realms DAO, and I've had a grant passed, and I was not able to execute the transaction, and so I had to pretty much campaign another week, 3 months later, and in between that time, SBF happened. And I still had to rally the troops, and we managed to get a proposal passed like 3 months after SBF, and FTX and all that kind of shit, right? But it was one of those things where you definitely saw like the community that was active almost like just implode on itself. It was very noticeable to me as someone who was campaigning for the DAO.
Yeah,
Um,
that's good feedback, and I think it's horrible that that happened. Especially, like I know how hard it is to rally, a group of people to meet quorum, and then have to do that all over again. Um, so I definitely would like to, for you and I to touch base after, just because as someone who works a lot with realms, I'm very happy with it, and
Yeah, no,
it's
I've
like
heard
something.
I've heard since then, and I think this is because I was a bit of an early mover, right? Like I think since then there's been updates, and I've heard that people are much much happier with Realms. But I've also been told that it was the only solution that we had, and there was nothing else. There was no alternatives, no competitors. And then I heard that NationDAO or Nation.io was the next thing, and then we never moved on that. We never talked about it anymore. Um, it felt like, okay, there's only one option as far as DAO tooling, and so at some point we have to kick it back to the DAO tooling companies that are in control and be like, are you guys doing everything that you possibly can to make sure that this UI UX is gonna onboard the next million people, or are you comfortable because you're the only one? And I'm not really saying that about Realms. I think these guys build fast and they work hard, you know. But I think competition is healthy.
Yeah, totally agree. We've touched so many topics, guys. I happen to be we've gone an hour. I'm late for another call, but please use this space. Stick around. I'm gonna definitely listen to the recording after. I want to thank everybody who joined and came on to speak. So much for us to do in this space, and really, Je, Crayon, and then Tony and Madam, you guys added so much more depth and color to this. I really hope you guys will join us next time. And yeah, everybody, take care. Have a great weekend. We'll talk soon.